So we've been talking about narrative elements, which again are those necessary building blocks of any and all stories. And I told you that there are four. There's setting, there's conflict, there's plot, and now we're on our last of the four, which are the characters. Characters, as you know, are the people, animals, or figures that are represented in a literary work. And when you have characters, a good author is going to characterize them. Characterization is the author's creation of your character's personality and appearance. Authors will characterize the characters both directly and indirectly. When I'm talking about direct characterization, what I mean is the narrator is going to come out and tell you something about their personality or their appearance. It's going to be exactly how that person is, meaning that you, as the reader, don't need to make any inferences. You don't need to come to your own conclusions because the author has done all of that for you already. Now, where you as the reader need to do a little bit more work is when you're working with an author who has provided you with indirect characterization. Because at that point, the author is providing you with information that you do need to make some inferences with in order to figure out what your character's personality is like. So I like to use the DARTS acronym in order to think about the 5 ways that an author can characterize its characters. So the D stands for direct, and it is the only way an author can directly characterize a character. The A, R, T, and S are all indirect methods of characterization. So with the A, R, T, and S, you'll need to make inferences. Authors are going to use a combination of these methods whenever they characterize a character. So, direct characterization. This is when the author is telling you again about their personality or appearance straight up. No beating around the bush. They use adjectives typically in order to describe it. So Miss Galgano was very patient with her goofy class. Using very patient tells you directly about my personality, and you don't have to make inferences. The students were mad because they had their seats changed. Again, mad is the direct characterization. She was stick thin. That description of her appearance is direct. Now, here are the methods of indirect characterization. The author can indirectly characterize their characters by telling you about the character's actions, how other characters react to your character's thoughts, and what a character says and how she says it in their speech. So in terms of their actions, you can figure out a lot about someone's personality based on how they act. So for instance, Miss Galgano smiled brightly at her class. Because I smiled brightly, you might infer that I am very friendly. Jordan checked herself out in the reflection of her iPad. You might then infer that Jordan cares a lot about her appearance. Erin volunteered something profound and insightful in discussion. Based on her participation in the discussion, you might infer that Erin is very intelligent and hardworking. Iris burst out into song in the middle of class. You might infer that Iris is goofy. All of those are based on characters' actions. Now, other characters' reactions. This is the one type of characterization that is very different from the others because you're going to focus on a character other than the character that you are analyzing at the moment. So you're looking at other characters' reactions to your character. So, Louis covered his ears at the sound of Iris's singing. Here, the character we're focusing on is Iris, and the fact that Louis reacted to her by covering his ears suggests that Iris maybe isn't the best at singing. Thoughts. So now we're returning to our main character that we're analyzing. And a reader can make an inference about a character based on the things they're thinking about. So, as Joseph bustled through the crowded hallways, he had one thought on his mind: to get to his favorite class, English. So the fact that Joseph is thinking about his desire to race to English class, you might be able to infer that he is studious and hardworking. With speech, you can make an inference on what your character says. So, for instance, everyone, I'm so excited to read your essays. I know they're going to be fantastic, Miss Galgano exclaimed with a huge smile. You can infer that I am overly excited, that I care about my students, etc., etc. Stop talking, get to work, or I'm sending you to discipline, Miss Galgano threatened. You can infer that I'm cold and impatient. But you can also infer based on how your character says what they say. So, for instance, period 1-2 is my favorite class, Miss Galgano happily exclaimed, versus period 1-2 is my favorite class, Miss Galgano said flatly, rolling her eyes. So, obviously, you would come to much different conclusions on those two things that I said, even though I was saying the same exact things. The way I said it was dramatically different, and that would cause you to come to those different inferences. When we have two or more characters speaking to one another, it's called dialogue. Dialogue is marked by quotation marks in a story. So I have an example here of the dialogue from a short story we'll be reading later on. And here we have the dialogue read and underlined. So that concludes our notes on narrative elements.